Russian exports. Russia ran out of cheap oil and gas. New deposits are in the Arctic terrain. Cost of production is huge. Chinese market can't compensate the loss of Western. Chinese use their leverage and set prices far below the break-even point. Russian economy is super fragile. It's critically dependent upon the 1. Export of natural resources. 2. Technological import. It has always been so. That's why Russia could never win a major war without massive economic help of the West. Without Western allies, Russia's doomed. Thread. Let's have a look at Russian export structure. As you see, carbohydrates comprise its lion's share with 1. Metals. 2. Precious metals and stones. 3. Chemical products, mostly fertilizers. Following. Russian economy is quite simply and based on the export of natural resources. Where Russia takes resources to export, there is a trend northward. Until World War II, Russia relied on Azerbaijan oil. In 1948 it found it in Tatarstan. In 1960 in West Siberia. Now it relies on the Arctic. The older southern deposits deplete and you have to go north to find them. Let's have a look on the largest gas oil projects of Putin's era. Overall they give a pretty good picture of how it goes with extraction of natural resources. TLDR. The cost of extraction in Russia grows quickly in dependence on foreign financial plus technological assistance. 2. Deposit Vostok oil has 1/3 of Russian oil. The first well was drilled in 2020. In 2021 they started planning a pipeline route. They also must build a railway, a pipeline and a new port, all in the Arctic, at enormous cost. Singaporean Trafigura, Vital, etc. invested in project. In 2013 Russia started extracting oil from its first shelf deposit, Preraslamnoy. Now it's 2022 and it's still the only one. Why? It's expensive. Experts argue it's profitable only when the oil price is above $7,100. Estimates vary. This oil is sour, has a lot of sulfur. Basanov Formation is a geological stratum covering more than 1 million kilometers. It's the sediment of a prehistoric sea containing more oil than all currently extracted Russian deposits. But Russia lacks technology to extract it profitably. They do research but with no results so far. Now let's discuss liquefied gas production. There are 2 Arctic facilities, Yamal LNG and Arctic LNG 2. Yamal LNG is finished. First production line started in 2016. French Total owns 20%, Chinese CNPC 20%, Silk Road Fund 9%. It includes plant, seaport, airport, etc. Arctic LNG 2, another project for producing and exporting the liquefied natural gas, is still under construction. They estimate it's 39% ready. Investors include French Total, Chinese CNPC and CNOOC, Japanese Mitsui and Jogmac. Until recently Putin aspired to increase the gas export to Europe. He built a Nord Stream 1 pipeline connecting Russian Ust-Luga with Germany. He started building a liquefied gas plant in Ust-Luga which was supposed to start production in 2023 and reach full capacity in 2024. Russian relations with the West declining, Putin tried to get closer with China. In 2019 they commenced exporting gas through the Power of Siberia pipeline. They are also building a more gas processing plant there. Production commenced in 2021 and should reach full capacity in 2025. This plant belongs to the Russian Gazprom. However, it took loans from the Bank of China, China Construction Bank Corporation and China Development Bank. Most of machines and equipment for gas production were supplied by the German Linde Group. Sounds good, doesn't it? Putin prepares for the war on the West and diversifies his export markets, and yet, he projected terribly unprofitable. China is the only market and OFC Chinese set the lowest possible prices. The project is purely political, economically detrimental. Power of Siberia pipeline is extremely costly. Why? Because contractors were Putin's friends, Rotenberg and Timchenko. In 2018, Sberbank SIB analysts concluded that the alternative route for the pipeline would be 5 times cheaper, and it was rejected in favor of costlier option. Analysts speculated that the pipeline's construction in Russia is systematically conducted not in the interest of state-owned companies which finance them, but in favor of well-connected contractors who build them, and they purposefully designed them as costly as possible. These analysts suggested that the entire pipeline construction in Russia is conducted in a way so that contractors could enrich. In other words, state-owned companies work at a loss, so that Putin's friends could work at a profit. Analysts were fired, of course. Russia is critically dependent upon the West regarding its exports. It needs Western technological and managerial assistance to extract and export natural resources. There are OFC purely Russian projects with no Western investors, contractors. They just don't work and remain on paper. Putin tries to diversify his exports, reorienting them to China. But Chinese are no idiots. Reorienting its export flows towards China, Russia comes to the one-buyer market. Chinese don't care about friendship and exploit Russia, setting the prices far below break-even point. If Xi Jinping really urged Putin to wait with his invasion till the end of Beijing Olympics, that's hilarious. That would show enormous Chinese disregard to Russian interests and unthinkable compliance of Putin. Xi asked. Putin obeyed and waited till the spring mud. His army stuck. China can't compensate the loss of European market. It also can't compensate it technologically. Even on Far Eastern gas plants they used German machines. Import from China is significant, far below imports from Europe, which supplies Russia with most means of production. And OFC China can't compensate Europe as an investor. Most of Russian-Chinese investment cooperation is bees. Chinese sign whatever the non-binding agreements Putin wants, then don't invest anything. There's zero progress on 81 out of total 88 such projects that were agreed upon. The very idea that expanding on Chinese one-buyer market can compensate the losses on Western multi-buyers market is insane. China perfectly understands Russian neediness and will use its leverage fully. Friendship of a declining empire with a rising superpower is a delusion. Chinese policy towards Russia may have an element of revenge in it. Deng Xiaoping told that imperialistic powers inflicted a lot of damage on China during its weakness. Japan OFC made the most of devastation, but Russia, including the USSR, took the most of advantage of China. I don't know what Xi Jinping thinks of his relations with the northern neighbor, but I won't be surprised if he views using his leverage fully as a sort of retaliation. In the past you exploited our weakness under a bee's pretext of friendship. Now, as you are weaker, we will. So there are 3 factors that don't allow Russia to compensate their export losses on Chinese market. Firstly, China is using its leverage, as there's no one else to buy. Secondly, Putin's friends organize construction of infrastructure as costly as possible in order to enrich. The problem is not just them stealing. In fact, it would be much better if they just directly took billions from the budget of Russian state-owned companies. The problem is that state companies can't just openly transfer money onto the offshore accounts of Putin's friends. Since Putin's friends can't just openly take money from government budget, they organize a lot of bees construction acting as contractors, and they purposefully maximize the cost. They destroy at least 10 rubles in order to steal one. That's why everything is so unprofitable. And finally, reorienting towards China takes time. You can't do it overnight no matter how much you need it. Even if Putin's friends didn't participate. Impossible. And China would altruistically cooperate. Impossible. It would take many years. Economy will collapse much earlier. This is exacerbated by the depletion of southern deposits, which are easier and cheaper to extract. Why does Russia go further and further north for oil and gas extraction? Because all southern and cheaper ones are being depleted. That's why Russian oil is so expensive to produce. How expensive it is, we can't know for sure because Russian legislation and Putin's executive order classify such information. And yet, We can consider some expert estimates. In 2019, the IHS Markit concluded that the cost of production of Russian oil is some of the highest in the world. They estimate it as $42 for onshore and $44 for offshore projects. You can ask, are these estimates reliable? In fact, there is a corroborating evidence.